Hi folks, this has got to be one of my favourite John Martyn songs of all time, originally released in 1971. Confused me a little bit. I thought this was first came out on the Solid Air album, which was 1973, but apparently there was another version that was released in 1971 as a single by Island Records. John Martyn didn't like it very much and he kind of left them to it, so redid it for the Solid Air album, and that's the version that we all know. Well, I say that's the version we all know. He played it for a good 40 years, so it evolved a little bit over time, I would say. I've seen several versions of him playing it, and each one is slightly different, so this is the way I play it anyway. I've got a capo on the 3rd fret, and I'm in drop D tuning. So that's your low E string and your D string, an octave apart. Starting off with this chord shape up here. So I've got the open A string, my D string on the 14th fret, my G string on the 12th, and my B string is on the 13th. And I'm going to pluck the A string on its own first, and then I'm going to pluck the G, D and B strings together. Then I'm going to move that shape down a full tone, so 2 frets down from there. And I'm going to pluck all 4 strings together, so the A, D, G and B strings. So. And then we come down to its D shape. Bass on the low E string. So, toughest bit here, I think, is probably getting the picking pattern right. So, once you've done that part, plucking the low E string, the G, B and E strings, or maybe the G, B and high E strings, both work, and I find. I think I tend to play the D, G and B strings, along with that bass string. So pluck the 4 strings together, tap, then pluck the low E string, the D string, and then the G and the B strings together. So, and that's kind of the rhythm that you're going to keep the whole way through it. So it might just be worth. Might still just be worth practicing that a little bit while till you get that rhythm and that picking pattern nailed down. Leaving that ring finger on the 6th fret, and I'm going to bring my first finger across to the 5th fret on the A string, and this time I'm going to pick with the thumb. I'm moving over to the A string, and again D, G and B strings, and you follow that exact same picking pattern we were using on the D. A shape. So again, A string, D string, G string and B string. Then we're going to do this little slide here. So we pluck the A chord. It's actually a C because we're up there on the 4th fret, 5th fret. I move my 2nd finger onto the B string on the 6th fret, and my ring finger goes onto the 7th fret on the D string, and then I'm going to slide my ring finger up to the 8th fret, of a stretch. It's probably the hardest part, stretch-wise, in the whole tune. I mean, use your pinky if you want. I've got a habit of killing the top E string when I do that, so I tend to slide it instead. Come back to the D. This time, we're definitely going to be picking the G, B and high E strings along with the bass string. And we do this. Take the finger off the high E string, hammer on and off, and then come to the B string. So the first part. Chord there, which was the, I suppose it would be like a G shape, but we're missing, we're missing the bass and the two E strings off it, really. In which case here it would be a A sharp. Back to that A sharp chord, which was that 6th fret on the B string and 5th fret on the A string. And this time we're just going to do a hammer on pull off with this that same chord we used before, where we added to that A shape chord. So bring the B string up onto the 6th fret and the D string onto the 7th. Pull it off, hammer on, pull off, and back to the D. Remember to go to the low E string for that. Other little things I do along with that there. When you come over to that G shape, you can either pick the high E string, B string and G strings, or the G string, B string, G string and D strings, but just on the last time through, so the other thing I'll do as well, instead of hitting the tap, sometimes I'll strum with my first finger across the strings. So you get that effect. That's off with May you never lay your head down without a hand to hold. May you never lay your head down in the cold. Just like that big strong brother of mine, I know that my love is true. Never talk behind my back when I know that there's those that do. Then we move over to this bit, won't you please, bear it in mind. So what I'm doing here is like holding an A shape, but I'm barring all top 4 strings, so the D, G, B and D. I'm going to do here is with my thumb, I'm going to pluck the A string. I've got my 3 fingers on the D, G and B strings. But as I lift off, I hammer on with my pinky up here, right up onto the 8th fret, over the high E and B strings. And then we come down. This bit sounds really complicated, and it's not. It's actually quite simple. It's all in the picking. So this time we're going to bar right the way across, as if we were doing an A chord, but this time we're going to bar across to the A string. So we're going to include the A string in it. So pluck the A string, G string, D string, B string, G string, and then high E string, B string, G string, and D string. So, and then come back to the B string to finish it on. And then that repeats. It goes back to that same part again. And then we step into the little bit which is kind of the fill part of it. And that's you pretty much through it. Second verse just repeats, back up again. So then the only bit to do really is that lovely little rundown at the end of the song where it just runs down that scale. So we're going to strum the D chord, strum the D, pull off the G string, D string on the 7th fret, open G string, D string on the 5th fret to open, A string on the 7th fret, open D string, 5th fret on the A string, open, E string on the 7th fret, A string open, and then open E string and strum the D chord to finish. I think he plays the low note first and then finishes it on the D chord. And there you go, May You Never. Not as hard as it first sounds, so I'm sure you'll get it. Just takes a little bit of practice, and the hardest part is getting your fingers working there. But as far as picking goes, I think this is probably quite a good introduction to it, because it's not overly complicated, and most of the time you're plucking with 3 fingers, maybe adding the first finger in on its own and then plucking with the other 2 fingers together. The only bit that's got any sort of complexity in it picking wise is that part. The rest of it is pretty straightforward. So anyway, hope you enjoy it, and don't forget, if you like this, go out and check some more of my other videos. Cheers folks.